Well, if you're a Calgary-based real estate investor, you may have noticed that it's much more challenging to fill vacancies this year than it was just a few years ago. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 key strategies that we as professional property managers use to fill vacancies when we have them. So let's go ahead and jump right into it here. And the first one is to be in control of the timing, all right? We only use fixed term leases at Greenleaf Property Management so that our tenants can never give us notice that they want to move out early and force us to be reactive to their time frame. When we have a fixed term lease, we know when that lease is going to end, and so we can have defined processes to contact the existing tenants and open up the discussion for a lease renewal 90 or even 120 days in advance of their lease expiring. That way, if the tenant says, you know what, we're going to move out, this place isn't for us anymore, we've got a nice long runway to get our units up on the open market and hopefully attract a tenant that wants to live there, all right? Now, having your units up on the market well in advance also gives you the opportunity to attract the right type of tenants that you want to have in your unit. The responsible tenants that are thinking ahead about where they're going to be living and looking for properties that are on the market 60 to 90 days in advance of them needing housing, all right? We've found that tenants that are only thinking 30 days out, oftentimes they're the ones that are missing payments or aren't reading all of the rules in the lease and cause further issues with management. So having your units up on the market early allows you the opportunity to get the best types of tenants that are planning ahead for themselves and want to know where they're going to be living in the next 60 to 90 days, okay? This allows you to set that professional tone with those tenants right when they view the ad so that you've got a nice professional experience with them from that point going forward, okay? Next up is proper marketing, all right? So there's a saying in real estate that the curb appeal or how a property looks on the outside is going to be very reflective of how it looks on the inside, all right? And in my experience, leasing is the same way. If you're looking at a leasing ad where you've got grainy photos, messy stuff left out from the existing tenants that are in there, and that's what you're putting out to the world to try and attract tenants to your listing, they're going to skip over it and they're instead going to look at the one that's got professional photos, that's nice and clean, and the properties are well lit. Because that's going to give those tenants a good vibe that they're dealing with a professional manager who cares about the marketing of their property and isn't just looking for the next person with a heartbeat and the rental payment to come in and make the payments and be their tenants, all right? This also lets you recycle your good ads, your good marketing materials next time you have a vacancy on it. And obviously, the better that your marketing is, the greater the likelihood that you might attract someone willing to rent your property sight unseen. Maybe they're in Ontario, maybe they're in BC. They don't want to spend the money on a flight to come out here and hopefully they can find something for their time frame. They may choose to rent the property right from where they are and save you all of the hassle of showing it and everything else and get that great tenant just by virtue of having good and proper marketing, okay? Next up is getting your rates right. This is so important with rentals because tenants are so sensitive to even $25, $50, or $100 per month on asking rate, okay? Now I'm going to recommend that when you advertise your rentals, you're advertising at the base rent only, and then inclusions such as utilities or parking or pet fees, all of those things, you're going to keep them off of the asking rate on your ads and instead introduce them in the showing and negotiation process with your tenants, all right? Far too many landlords make the mistake of putting their units up for rent and putting what the tenant is gonna have to pay. You know, they're trying to be truthful about it, not, hide anything. But when you include your utilities and you include your parking on the asking rate, you're elevating that amount, and tenants will select a filter just based on pricing, and you'll miss out on a lot of applicants who are going to end up paying more for the other landlords that aren't marketing their units with utilities included or parking or those types of things, okay? So list your extras separately and have that discussion with tenants after they've viewed your unit, okay? Now, tenants think in hourly terms, and this is why it's so important for you to get your lease rate right, because if you're $50 a month higher, that could be 2, 3, 4 hours of after-tax income for your tenants. So by reducing your asking rate just a little bit from where all of the other landlords are, you're gonna open up so many more applicants for your rental property, and then you can choose from there who you want to have in, get the right type of demographic, get those with good employment, with the right type of people living in your unit, and that's going to set you up for a lot of success there. Okay, so leave a little bit of money on the table, and then you can catch them up at renewal once you've shown them how amazing a landlord are and how well you keep your properties. All right, next up, I want you guys to reduce your restrictions. Make it easy for people to move in, all right? So while we're gonna advertise our base rates on rents, we're gonna include utilities where we can, particularly in suited properties, so that you're not asking your tenants to reconcile the lease or the utility amounts between them. You can set your lease amounts or your utility surcharge at such a rate that you're always going to be protected as a landlord, and then you can revisit that throughout the year if your tenants think there's a discrepancy there. That's worked well for us for decades here in Calgary. So including that then means they don't have to go to a utility provider and set up their own account and put a deposit in and go through all of that process and then have that, proof of utilities paperwork to give you as your landlord before you're giving them keys. It's just another step that busy people don't want to have to deal with. So out of convenience, if you can handle that for them, you're going to have a better opportunity to fill your vacancies fast, all right? You're also going to want to handle your move-in well, so give them the instructions, help them get the elevator booked, let them know what they need to do for parking, remind them about how some other tenants have been able to move in large pieces of furniture before, just so that you're making it easy for them on a really stressful day when they're looking to get into your property, okay? Now at Greenleaf, we're generally a pet-friendly landlord in case our owner clients tell us they just don't want pets in their unit. But in our experience, pet owners are generally just as responsible as non-pet owners. And for all of the landlords out there that just, for whatever reason, can't deal with the complexity of having pets and properties, those landlords that are pet friendly are going to get a whole other subset of tenants available to them that the pickier landlords just won't. So be okay with having pets, and you'll find it a little bit easier to fill your vacancies, okay? And then this is an easy one in my view. If you've got somebody that's set to move in at the beginning of next month and you've got 10 days where you've got a vacancy in place, allow them to move in for a few extra days for free. Let them take their time with it and build some goodwill with your tenant if you have the opportunity to do so, okay? So many landlords are just saying your lease starts on the 1st, you move in on the 1st, and that's how it's gonna be. When you're rigid like that, again, it can stress tenants out. And if they're looking at a unit that's available a few days early so they can move a few things in early, or one that's not and they have to be in there right at that specific day, they're going to go with the convenient option of having the ability to move in earlier almost every time, okay? Now last up here is use professionals, all right? You may only do this as an amateur landlord a handful of times a year. Well, pros are doing this hundreds of times, all right? They know all of the ins and outs. They have all of the quick answers to tenants' questions right away. And the top tenants don't want to deal with amateurs. If you've got a really nice unit out there and it's up for rent and you've only got 1 or 2 ads up there and you're meeting your tenant applicant in person as the landlord directly, the person they're going to be dealing with, sometimes they're not going to be setting off the right type of professional vibe that the best tenants are looking for. There's so many scam artists out there right now that are looking to victimize tenants by taking their deposits and running ads for units that they don't even have available, that if you're using a professional, it's going to give tenants that confidence that they're renting from a licensed property management company. They can send that deposit in advance, and things are just going to move faster and smoother when you're using professionals, okay? Now, pros are also going to be less likely to bend the rules and add concessions, all right? If you're an amateur landlord, you'll find that some of the tenants will tug at your heartstrings. They just need a little bit of extra time to get their money in. They don't have the whole security deposit right now. They've only got half, but they'll get the rest of it to you next month, and you really want to fill that vacancy. Well, you're going to be a little bit more challenged to be strict with your rules when you're doing it for yourself than when you've got a professional there who's got that professional screen and their professional armor on to make sure that they're not allowing any of the processes to be bent and giving off that vibe to your tenant right away, okay? Now, the other reason you want to use professionals is the really bad tenants, the ones that look to victimize their landlords. Well, they want amateurs. They want to go and rent from someone that's only doing this 1 or 2 times a year and hasn't fully dialed in all of their systems and processes, because the professional tenants, that's what we call them, they're going to use the system against landlords like that to be able to get away with little things that they shouldn't, and just really create an unfortunate situation for that landlord. And we've all heard the nightmare stories out there. Now, most of that stuff happens to amateur landlords, not professionals, because professionals know how to steer that away. So I'd love to know what you think of our 5 tips here to help get your Calgary vacancies filled faster. Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next video.